Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Local Review Body for the 22nd of September 2025. As is my normal procedure, I will start by introducing the members of the panel. I am Councillor Bob Braun. I'm the convener of the Local Review Body, and to my right is Councillor Grant Stewart, and to my left is Councillor Mike Williamson. We are, by requirement, all members of the Planning and Placemaking Committee. To my far left is Mr. Callum MacLeod, who is our legal advisor today, and to his left is Ms. Audrey Roberts, who is from Committee Services. On screen, we have Mrs. Leslie Tierney, who is an independent advisor who has only been involved in these cases since they've been referred to the Local Review Body process. Members, my next point is for declarations of interest. Councillor Stewart.
No declarations.
And Councillor Williamson.
No declaration.
Next item on the agenda is the minutes for the previous Local Review Body. I was the only member of the three of us who was on that, and I'm happy with the minutes, so we'll pass those as approved. That leads us on now to the full agenda for this morning, and the first item on the agenda is to deal with a property, an extension to a dwelling house at 2 Candy Farm Cottage, Glenfarg, and I'll ask Mrs. Tierney if she will introduce the case, please. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. So we'll just run through the presentation. So the first slide is, as usual, the location of the development proposed, just to the west of Glenfarg there in a rural location. And then just in a little bit more detail, you can just see the road that runs up to the west, uphill from Glenfarg and down towards the application site highlighted within the circle there. Next slide, please. And then we look more closely at the application site, a collection of other properties up the track, farm building and a couple of other houses, and then up towards the application site within the circle. And then to look a little bit more closely at the property itself, number 2, which is the subject of the appeal, is one half of a pair of semi-detached cottages. So the line there just shows you the split between the two. And then some of the drawings from the applicant. So again, this is the usual kind of location plan to the west of Glenfarg with the application site highlighted in red. And then a little bit more closely in terms of the location plan, again with the site highlighted there in red. And then turning to the plans that were submitted with the application. So the first one here is the existing floor plans of the property. So you can see the split between number 1 and number 2. And obviously a small 1-bedroom cottage. The plans show, as you can see, denoted with the red dashed line, where the areas of downtakings are going to take place. And what remains is, as you can see there, round the bedroom lounge and ensuite area, the thick hashed line is the outline of what remains of the cottage. The red dotted lines are additions to the property. The extension at the rear is possibly a little bit less traditional in style than the original, and you'll see that in the photos. The reason why I've circled the yellow area is, I'll come on to it, but it's to do with what the walls of the property are in terms of downtaking, because although those red dashed areas show the areas of downtaking, I think there is a bit of a question over additional areas of downtaking with some of those thicker walls not being shown on the proposed plan. So we'll move on to that next slide, please. So this is the proposed floor plan. So the dashed line on the left-hand side there is the line between the two properties. You can see what now becomes 2 bedrooms within the thicker walls of the existing cottage, and the extension that's proposed. And again, where that yellow circle is roughly accords with the previous slide of some of the existing walls of the property, which don't appear to exist anymore. So that appears to be a further area of down taking. So I think in terms of this proposed floor plan drawing, what you're seeing is of the original cottage, those 2 bedrooms on the left-hand side there, and the rest is all new development. Next slide, please. And then this is to show you the elevations now. So the southeast elevation, effectively the front, as you look at it, again around that front porch area, the red dashed area, that comes down. And then you can see the proposed extension where the part of the cottage remains on the left-hand side, and the coloured area is the proposed extension. I've circled the chimney on the existing southeast elevation, just on that hip of the roof, because again, that is an area of down taking that's not shown on the drawings. And obviously, as you can see, there is a new chimney. But what happens to obviously the original chimney will be coming down as well. Next slide, please. And then this is the other side, so the northwest elevation, effectively the rear elevation. Again, you can see the dotted areas of down takings and alterations to the back window, and I've circled the chimney again because that does come down, and you can see the bottom there is the proposed extension. So the original part of the building is the white area on the right hand side, and then the extension is all the coloured section to the left. Next slide, please. And then the northeast elevation. So again, the areas in red denote the down takings, chimneys highlighted there, and the bottom is the proposed extension with the chimney on the side. Next slide, please. And then this is effectively the internal courtyard, as you would see it from the other property, with the red area being the down taking and the bottom drawn being the proposed extension with the gable rather than the hip roof. And then this is a roof plan. I haven't done any annotations on this, but the original part of the roof is just on the left-hand side beside the dotted line, and the extension is the square area, and there's a flat roof section in between the 2 gable features on the rear of the property. It's effectively one big square. Next slide, please. So then photographs of the site. So this is as you head up the track towards the 2 properties. They're effectively behind that tree where the arrow indicates. Next slide, please. And then as you come in a bit closer, we've got number 1 on the left, number 2 on the right, and the access into both properties. Next slide, please. And then this is just looking at the access into number 2 specifically, a little bit further out, top left. And then as you come in more closely, there's obviously a few other bits of groundworks and things going on at the property at the moment. Next slide, please. And then starting to look at the building itself. On the top there, you can see the outline of the 2 cottages with the 2 hip roofs at the front. And then on the right-hand side, the yellow line shows the split between the two properties. And then coming around to the side, the area within the square there is the rear portion that would be demolished. And then again, just from a slightly different angle, again, that section there being demolished. And then just from the side again, that front section with the hip roof and the chimney, it's, as those drawings show, it's difficult to discern what is happening there. They're not shown as down takings on the drawings, but they're clearly going to be removed. Next slide, please. And then this is the courtyard at the back. The section that's at the front there is the rear portion that will be demolished. And then just slightly further away, so you can see the split between the two properties again with the yellow line. And then a little bit more closely, the mutual boundary between the two properties. And then this is just the image on the left. You can just see the property on the far left-hand side, just to give you an impression of the surrounding areas. Quite a bit of tree growth on the adjacent property, and then bottom right, the wider garden area associated with the property. Next slide. And then these two images are the neighbouring cottage, so that's the front of it. On the top left, and then bottom right is the rear extension and the side hip roof and chimney. Image on the left is as you are heading from the property back out to the farm track, and then on the right is the entrance to the track with a farm building on the right, a dwelling house up the hill on the left-hand side, and the arrow indicates the application site. And then from a little bit further away, those arrows just show you where the application site is in a distant view. Okay, so by way of introduction, as you can see, the appeal site is one half of a pair of semi-detached single-storey traditional cottages. It's constructed with a traditional slate roof, Hipton style with white rendered walls. It's a one-bedroom house at present, and the alterations and extension will provide 4 bedrooms. The reasons for refusal were firstly the proposal by virtue of its footprint, the width of its southeast elevation, its design and its finishing materials would have a detrimental impact on the modest scale, traditional character and environmental quality of the application property. Approval would therefore be contrary to Policy 16GI, Quality Homes of National Planning Framework 4, contrary to Policy 1A, Placemaking of the Perth and Kinross LDP 2, and contrary to Perth and Kinross Placemaking Supplementary Guidance 2020. And secondly, the proposal by virtue of the width of its southeast elevation, its design and its finishing materials would have a detrimental impact on the traditional character and environmental quality of the semi-detached pair of dwelling houses. Approval would therefore be contrary to Policy 16G1, Quality Homes of NPF 4, Policy 1BC, Placemaking of Perth and Kinross LDP 2, and contrary to Perth and Kinross Placemaking Supplementary Guidance. And thirdly, the application, due to the lack of a BAT survey, fails to demonstrate that BATs will not be affected by the proposal. Approval would therefore be contrary to Policy 4F, Natural Places, Protected Species of NPF 4, and contrary to Policy 41, Biodiversity of the Perth and Kinross LDP. The assessment by the Planning Service notes that the character of the pair of cottages is noted particularly when viewed from the southeast. It is traditional and understated in appearance. The width of the front of the house would be doubled, and along with a projecting gable feature, the extension would be a dominant feature, be detrimental to the character of the existing house, and would significantly unbalance the southeast elevation of the pair of semi-detached houses. The extension will have a concrete tiled roof, a projecting gable feature on the southeast elevation, the front, and 2 projecting gable features on the rear, with a section of flat roof in between. Stone cladding is proposed, and this, along with the floor-to-roof glazing, further increases the dominance of the gables. While the property has seen alterations in the past, it does retain its traditional vertical features, including the windows. The chimney is also not appropriate in terms of scale and design. A BAT survey has not been submitted to demonstrate there are no BATs present, or if there are what mitigation may be incorporated. However, the fundamental issues related to the design remain. The applicant, in terms of their case, has said that with regard to the first reason for refusal, the extension is only just larger than what would be allowed under permitted development. The 20 square metres over this level allows for the applicant to provide comfortable space for all of his family. What is allowed under permitted development and which would have a shallower roof pitch would be more detrimental to the property. The style of the glass gables is to match the nearby house at the end of the access track, and this is a prominent property of large massing. Similarly, the materials would be similar to that of that property. The property will be upgraded to include an efficient heating system and insulation. The applicant has no reason to believe there are bats at the property. And in terms of other matters, although the planning service comment about the increase in the floor area of the property resulting from the downtaking of the rear section and the replacement extension, and the drawings indicate the areas of downtaking and replacement, it's not clear exactly what all the downtakings are and exactly what percentage increase in floor area is. The drawings could be more accurate in terms of how much of the original cottage is actually left and the roof plans with regard to the existing chimney. There is some application history and also pre-application advice was given, but that was without the benefit of any plans, but indeed still highlighted the traditional nature of the property and the need to be sympathetic to that. And the need for a bat survey was also highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We'll open up to questions. If I can ask a question first of all, maybe to you, Mrs. Tierney or Mr. MacLeod, and it's a question of permitted development rights, if I may. The agent has mentioned and has actually included a design which they believe is under permitted development rights. Could you just explain to us a little bit more about how that would work? Because obviously it means they can build something without any application to us. Could you just clarify that, one of you? Thank you.
Yeah, convener. So the planning service have been contacted about that for comment, and I did see the drawings which they say would be permitted development. The issue with permitted development is the correct procedural way of confirming whether something is permitted development is through something called a certificate of lawfulness. So, you know, historically in the past, perhaps people would have maybe phoned up the planning department and asked if something was permitted development and been told yes it is, or, you know, fill out a form or something. But the correct legal procedural way of doing it is to actually, you know, put in a certificate. So I can't confirm one way or another, and probably the planning service couldn't confirm one way or another whether that drawing that's been put in by the agent would be permitted development or not, because the correct way of, you know, checking that is through the submission of a certificate of lawfulness. You know, there's obviously a slightly smaller floor area. The roof is slightly different. It's not considerably different to that's you know, in front of you today. But how much of that would be permitted development or not, you know, I can't answer that question for you today. And indeed, you know, the only way to do that is through a formal application as such.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Williamson, any questions? No questions. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you, convener. Ms. Tierney, visiting the site is quite secluded and not in view of any other properties. Was I correct in that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, Councillor Stewart. You know, that's kind of why some of those photographs showed you that you can't see it effectively from a distance, and you do have to be very close up to it before you can really see it. Yes.
Thank you. So we're really, and I think it was in part of your presentation, fundamentally looking at the relationship of the East Cottage and the West Cottage. You have a sort of a familiar traditional farm cottages.
Yeah, I mean, they've obviously been designed in that way. I mean, we're not talking about a listed building here or a conservation area, but a pair of very traditionally designed and built in terms of materials and their design pair of properties.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions myself. So members, having finished the questions, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us, that is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor, or do we need more information? Councillor Williamson? No, are you happy to proceed?
Yes, I'm happy to review, sorry.
And Councillor Stewart?
Proceed.
Yeah, okay, and I too am happy to proceed. So if I may, I will start us off. Extensions are always difficult to assess. I always feel there are obviously planning rules we have to follow, but obviously we're dealing with someone's personal desires, their personal preference, and of course they provide the finance to do the work. And obviously there's an element of risk always in these, that the wrong sort of extension is built. I visited the property myself. It is quite small, I think, for modern standards, 1 bedroom. And certainly there needs to be some work done to it to make it habitable again. I think obviously there are rules, as I say, for extensions, but I think there has to be, or will have to be, a degree of flexibility here because of the needs for a modern family life. That said, I feel in this case that the size of the extension is substantial. It will, I feel, overwhelm the site and overbalance. Bear in mind there's another property on the other side of it. It would be, I think it's too big an extension. Yes, there has to be flexibility beyond perhaps their own rules for extensions because of the state of the main building and the fact it needs to be developed. And I do take into account the fact, as we've questioned, it is in a rural location, not overlooked. But I think there has to be some consideration to the symmetry of the overall building. And in this case, I feel it's going to overwhelm it too much and overbalance the site. So I feel a little reluctantly in this case that I have to refuse the application as it is. There has been some communication between agent and officer, and I think that work could be done. I appreciate there's permitted development rights here. But that could cause problems further down the line. So I would suggest the agent should communicate further with the planning officer and form some form of compromise here for a successful outcome. I think that could be done, but I think in this instance, it's too much of an extension and overwhelm the site. So I'm going to have to refuse the appeal in this case. Councillor Williamson.
Yes, I do apologise. As I said previously, refuse the application.
And Councillor Williamson. Councillor.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'd like to echo your views, and while recognise trying to make a modern family home, and I recognise that there's some attempt to make some design cues, but unfortunately I'm going to go along with refuse as well.
Thank you, members. So, Mr. McLeod, we have a unanimous refusal on this one.
Thank you, Convener. I have a 3-0 unanimous decision in favour of refusing the appeal. Do the committee have any amendments to make to the reasons for refusal?
I don't personally, but I'll ask my other 2 colleagues if they have. No, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So with that, we'll now move on to the second item today. This is another extension, alteration and extension to a dwelling house at 1 Orchard Brae, Aberfeldy. Mrs. Tierney, if you could introduce for us.
Thank you, Convener. Again, we'll just run through the presentation slide. So Aberfeldy and application site denoted there with the yellow star, just towards the western edge of the town. Next slide, please. And then zooming in there, so obviously the Kenmore Road to the top side of the site, so it just sits next to the main road, and the road Orchard Brae that it sits on, and the application site within the circle. And then some drawings from the applicant. So this is the red line site boundary, which shows the property of Orchard Brae and the A827 Kenmore Road to the north, and the Laurels development to the east. And then we have the existing site plan to the left there, so that's the footprint of the existing property, and then the proposed on the right hand side. Again, you can see the property, and the areas in red denote the areas where they are to be extended. So on the left is the existing ground floor plan, and down takings again here kind of highlighted in red. So a lot of those in this case are actually internal. And on the right, the proposed ground floor plan. So you can see the kind of three circle and oval annotations there highlight the three areas where the property is to be extended. So the canopy to the front, the smaller of the ovals, the extension which provides to the front, which provides a study area internally with a circle in the middle, and then also the garage internally would be converted into a gym and an art area, and then the larger oval area to the side is an outdoor kind of canopy area. Next slide. Existing first floor plan and proposed first floor plan, just to show you effectively exactly the same. There's no alterations there, it's all on the ground floor. Next plan, please. And then the top is the existing northwest elevation. So you can see the existing windows, front door and garage area. And on the bottom, the proposed northwest elevation, which is the front of the property. So within the blue circles, the one on the right and the left are the kind of open canopy areas, if you like. So the one on the right is the entrance porch overhang area. The one on the left is the side kind of canopy along the side of the house. And the one in the middle with a slightly different blue colour is the extension to the front, which would provide the study area within the property. Next slide, please. And then the existing northeast elevation to the top, and then what you would see after the development on the bottom there. So again, the blue circle, the darker blue circle in the middle is the extension area, and the lighter blue circle is the kind of canopy area that you would see on the side. And then the existing southeast elevation and the to the top, and the proposed southeast elevation to the bottom. So there is a door becoming a window, but that's minor. The area within the blue circle is the canopy area that runs along the side of the property. Next slide, please. And then the existing southwest elevation, and then what you see at the bottom is proposed. So that's only really the front porch area, and that is open to the side. The timber cladding that you see in the middle there is the side of the extension that comes out from the front. Next slide, please. So these are some photographs. So this is Orchard Brae itself as it leads down onto Kenmore Road, and then on the right you can see the access into the property. Next slide, please. And then this is the access into the property, and you can see the existing house in the centre there. And then this is just some photos from inside the site. So this is the house, side gable that faces Orchard Brae, and then the front part of the front elevation of the house, and the same on the right hand side with a hedge that runs along the main road. And then these two images are from within the front garden area to the front of the house. So area of front garden, and then the fencing that runs along Kenmore Road to the front. And then these images are again from within the front garden area. The top left one there shows the properties on Laurel Brae, and a large garage that sits to the front there. And then that image on the right is just from the front garden area, as you would almost see the property from the main road. And then this is just coming round to the gable that would have the kind of the canopy along the side of it. And then you start to move around towards the rear garden area. So again, the top left image there is the side gable that would have the canopy. And just on the right hand side of the photo there, you can see the garage building associated with the neighbouring property. And then just a couple of images showing the rear garden area of the property, adjacent house just up the hill. And then just from, again, the rear of the property from the other side of the house. And then just some images to show you the visibility of the house from the main road, the Kenmore Road, so you can see the access into Orchard Brae, and the house is obviously there where the yellow arrow is, with some trees and so on around the edges. And then from the opposite direction, we're now looking at the property where the yellow arrow is, and again that neighbouring property in the adjacent development with the double garage to the side there. And then this is just looking directly up the street of the neighbouring development and the application site with the yellow arrow, which would be where the canopy area would be. And again, this is really just the front of the property as you see it from Kenmore Road. And then these are some images from the applicant's pack of information. So this is a 3D image of the proposal. So you can see the clad area in the centre being the study extension area. Then you can see the kind of covered porch to the right hand side, and the canopy area along the gable of the property on the other side. This was a proposal that the planning service had suggested to the applicant that they would have been more comfortable with. So you can see there's still a porch to the front, and the study area doesn't project to the front of the property in the same way. Next slide, please. And then also, this is a 3D image of the previously approved. There was a previously approved 2-storey extension to the side of the property. So that's a 3D image of that 2-storey property on the side gable of the house. And then this is some other information from the applicant. This is really to do with the question over building line, I suppose. So you can see the application site highlighted in red in the middle there. Orchard Brae itself to the west or left hand side, and then I think it's the Laurels, a separate access and kind of cul-de-sac to the east or the right hand side. You know, in terms of building line, there's not really a building line as such. There's properties that run along the roadside in a more orderly fashion to the west, but to the right hand side they're a bit more less orderly, shall we say. Next slide, please. And then this is some images from the applicant. This is a property within the conservation area in Aberfeldy with an ongoing house extension that's been approved that projects to the front of the property. Next slide, please. Actually, can we just go back to the one before that with the and the one before that, please? So I think it's probably worth just pointing out in terms of density here as well. I mean, obviously this house sits on quite a big plot. It is quite a lower density development, shall we say, probably towards the west and the south. But on the right-hand side, I think you can probably see it's a slightly higher density development to the right-hand side with properties with garages and so on within them. So I'll move on to the other information now. So the appeal property is a 2-storey detached house within a residential area of Aberfeldy on a prominent and elevated corner plot at the entrance into the wider development, visible from Kenmore Road to the front. There are 3 elements to the alterations: an extension including a front covered entrance, covered side canopy along the gable, and an enclosed extension to the front corner to provide a study. Internally, the alterations allow the existing garage to be converted to a gym and art studio area, and both the study and gym art area lead out through window doors to the covered outdoor area. The reasons for refusal were, firstly, approval would be contrary to MPF 4 Policy 14A, where the proposed extension would not be designed to improve the quality of the area, in this case, the dwelling house and its corner plot setting. B, where the extension would result in an insensitive layout, roof pitch arrangement and building line projection impacting on the property's principal elevation, legibility, design influence, street frontage and sense of place, inconsistent with the distinctive quality of a successful place. And C, where the proposal is poorly designed and inconsistent with the 6 qualities of successful places. And Policy 16G, 1, where the extension would have a detrimental impact on the principal elevation character of the home in terms of design positioning and layout projection to the north. And secondly, approval would be contrary to the Perth and Kinross LDP 2 Policy 1A, where the extension would not contribute positively to the quality of the surrounding built environment, in this case to the dwelling house and its corner plot setting by virtue of its siting and design. Policy 1BC, where the extension's design would not complement its surroundings by virtue of multiple incongruous roof pitch arrangements and its disrespectful projection to the north, west, and D, where it would not respect the existing principal building line, would not reinforce principal elevation, legibility or character, and would not reinforce the property's street frontage as a corner plot unit. Policy 17C, where the extension would not result in an improvement to the area's character, and as informed by placemaking supplementary guidance. So in terms of the assessment by the Planning Service, the placemaking guidance states that extensions should be subordinate and front extensions should generally be avoided, in particular where they dominate the principal elevation of the property and visual impact on an established streetscape is evident. However, modest porches or canopies may be acceptable, provided that the rhythm of a repeating street scene is not impaired and a well-designed proposal is presented. The corner extension and covered entrance would be forward of the established principal building line against placemaking policies. The development introduces new roof pitches within a valley formation and is considered a cumulative and visually dominant addition to the principal elevation. The side elevation canopy is acceptable in terms of design, but as it extends beyond the principal building line, it's not considered to be appropriate. The proposed development is relative in scale to the host property, but does not respect its depth and proportions, and therefore is not considered to be subordinate in all respects, particularly as the development is not set back from the frontage of the building and is not respectfully subservient to the principal elevation. Introduction of the development would result in a visually obvious and dominant change to the established street scene, especially when viewed from Orchard Brae or from along Kenmore Road. There are no concerns with the proposed material finishes or residential amenity. So in terms of the applicant's case, the property is an existing unremarkable house, and the alterations and extension will provide a layout suitable for home working. The house is not elevated as it sits at the bottom of Orchard Brae and is at the same level as Kenmore Road. There is not an established building line in this area of Aberfeldy. Indeed, the houses either side are defined by not having a set building line. The planning officer is disingenuous in their statement that a request was made to seek an amendment to the layout by setting it back from the principal building line and to alter the roof form whilst providing flexibility that a modest porch could be considered. They refused to look at the practicalities of the required space and suggested ideas that were impractical to the intended use of the house and space. What was granted planning permission before is a considerably greater level of development over 2 levels and is consequently more visual than what is proposed now. The proposal will add to the character of the house, not detract from it. When the height and width of the house is considered, the proposed design is obviously subservient to the host building, as all dimensions and heights are considerably less. And in terms of other matters, discussions were undertaken between the planning service and the applicant, including a suggested amended design by the planning service to set the development back from the principal building line and to alter the roof form whilst providing flexibility that a modest porch could be considered. And there, as I said, there is a previous proposal that was granted planning permission for a 2-storey extension, but this was set back from the principal elevation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pass on to questions. Councillor Williamson
No questions, thank you.
and Councillor Stewart.
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have just one. I just wondered, Mr. Chairman, if you could cover it. It's the extension we talk about. Is it forgetting the design for the moment and the frontage? Is it? Would you consider it subordinate to the main building? Is what I'm trying to get to, I suppose. Square meterage. I don't know if we have the figures for that, but would you still consider it subordinate?
Thank you, convener. I think 2 things. One is the size of it. So obviously it's a very much smaller than the existing property. So in that respect, it is subordinate. The other reason why I would suggest it is subordinate is that although there is a projection of the extension part in the middle, it's only a small area. That is all existing floor space apart from the small area that projects to the front. It would be, single figures of square meter to the front. And the other 2 extensions are not, they're open to the sides. They're light structures. So the porch at the front is open to the side. It has a canopy over the roof, obviously to protect from the weather, but the fact it's got no sides, I would suggest that makes it subordinate. And similarly, although the canopy along the side of the property is larger, it is a light structure and it is not enclosed by walls. It is open to the sides, would be my assessment.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no further questions, then members can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us, that is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor, or do we require more information? Councillor Williamson
No more information required.
and Councillor Stewart,
Ready to proceed.
and I'm also happy to proceed. So Councillor Williamson, if you could start us on this one.
Yes, thank you. I think my feeling is that we should refuse on the basis of the officer's recommendations.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, convener. Having visited the site and read the papers, I will concur with the officers and refuse the application.
Thank you both. As I said in previous case, application for extension is always complicated, always difficult, because obviously we have our rules, but then again, obviously the desire of the applicant. I'm going to be difficult on this one, although it's academic. I'm of the opinion we could approve this. I felt that, yes, it does extend to the front, but there isn't really a building line as such. I would be happy to approve this. I'm going to upset planning a little bit now by saying that their suggestion and the actual design, I can't actually see much of a difference in it, to be honest. And I agree with the applicant that the new application before us is a better appearance than the one that's already been approved. It doesn't overwhelm, in my opinion, and I would be of the opinion that it should be the appeal should be successful. So I would have approved it. I appreciate it's academic now, but that would be my thoughts. So, Mr. MacLeod, we have a majority decision to refuse, but on a 2-1 basis.
Thank you, convener. Just recording there as a 2-1 majority decision in refusing the appeal, with yourself, Councillor Braun, acting as the dissenter. Do the approving councillors have any amendments to the reasons for refusal?
Councillor Williamson
None.
and Councillor Stewart.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So on that case, I'm afraid that's a refusal, a 2-1 basis. Thank you. So we'll now move on, members, to the third paper today. This is formation of vehicle access and associated works, land 190 metres south-east of Gardener's Cottage, Eastwood House in Boat Road, Dunkeld. And if I can ask Mrs. Tierney to introduce this one.
Thank you, convener. So again, we'll run through the presentation slides. So location of the appeal site with the yellow star. On the A984, just to the south side of it there, between the road and the River Tay, opposite Burnham, just to the east of Dunkeld. Next slide, please. And then zooming in, so obviously the area of ground is quite heavily treed between the main road and the river, and the proposal is within the circle area shown here. And then the drawings from the applicant that were submitted. So the red line denotes the application site boundary. They're a bit of a funny shape because there's obviously the area that goes into the woodland area, and then the long spur is to provide for the visibility. And you can see there are areas of ground denoted in blue here, both on the south side of the road beside the application and on the top side of the road on the other side. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just a more detailed drawing of the location of the application site on an OS application. And then this is just shows you on the aerial photograph. This was actually from their traffic survey. So you can see the site location there highlighted in red, and that was where the traffic survey was done also. Next slide, please. And then this is the existing site plan. So obviously we've got a red line around the application site, but this shows at the as is situation just to the south of the main road there. Next slide, please. And then this is the as proposed. So there's quite a lot going on in the drawing. I appreciate that, mostly because of the treed nature of the site. But we effectively create an access into and turning area off the main road into the trees, and the drawings show the red hatched areas are the visibility, both west and east, and the various groundworks along that length. So undergrowth being lowered to help with visibility, trees being removed to help with visibility further to the east, the verge levels being reduced, removing of undergrowth, and the dry stone wall and build up of earth round about that being removed as well to help with the visibility. Next slide, please. And then these are just the detailed drawings of the junction layout and the turning area within the application site, and then the drawing in the middle is just it's a section that shows the application site and the access. Next slide, please. So then this is just to take away some of the other information from the drawing. This is purely showing the visibility splay, both at the point of access into the site and to the west, and also to the east. Next slide. And then these are sections through the existing. The top image there is the existing situation. So on the right hand side of the image is the road, and then you can see the wall and the earth and the trees within the application site. And then on the bottom, the trees highlighted in red there on the bottom are the ones that would be removed. And then you can also see where ground levels will be raised slightly to form the turning area, and also where they'll be lowered towards the front of the application site, where the walls are, where the dike wall and some growth is being, and verge is being removed at the area where the access is being created. Next slide, please. And then this is the various tree information submitted. This is the tree removal plan. So the blue is all the trees. The trees surveyed are numbered, and the trees to be removed are the ones which have got the black lines around them. So there's 10 altogether, one to the far right for visibility, and the others within the application site. Next slide, please. And then tree protection plan. So this is the trees that will remain after the development and are not affected by the development and will be protected. Next slide, please. And then this is just a zoomed in image, if you like, of the access into the site, the turning area, the trees that will be removed hatched with the red dots. I appreciate that's maybe quite a lot of information on that drawing on the left, and the one on the right is simply showing the tree that will be removed and the visibility to the east. Next slide, please. And then we've got some photographs. So this is from the opposite side of the site looking east. So you can see the main road, the kind of remains of the dike wall and the trees in behind. Next slide, please. And then again, this is taken from a junction on the other side of the road, which leads up to a couple of properties. So obviously the area within the circle is where the new access would be created and trees would be removed. Next slide, please. And then again from that junction, just looking more directly across the road at the trees between the road and the river that it goes down to, and the arrow, the generally approximate location of the access into the site. Next slide, please. Directly opposite, so this is land in their ownership, not necessarily part of the red line, but it's just to give you an impression of the site. So this is directly across the road from the track opposite. And then the next slide shows as you look east towards Dunkeld, just to give you a picture of that area of trees along the roadside there. Next slide, please. And then this is now taken from the development side of the road. So we're south side of the road now, standing largely within the application site. So you can see the road towards the west, the kind of remains of the dike wall and growth that run along the side of the road there, and some of the trees. Next slide, please. And then that's a little bit further along the road towards the west, just so you can see the distant views too, for visibility. Next slide, please. And then this is again from the site. This is now looking back towards Dunkeld. Next slide, please. And then this is from within the application site, so you can get an impression of the level of tree cover within the land and their ownership. Next slide, please. And again, this is from within the site, just looking towards the east. So you can see some more mature trees, and then this is a little bit. It's okay. Next slide's fine. Thanks. This is now looking back towards the main road through the trees. So you can see some more mature trees, some younger, smaller trees as well. Next slide, please. Again, just to give you an impression. So that to the right hand side of that image, it gets a bit denser, and that is where it falls down towards the River Tay. And then this is just taken from the east, looking west, just at the point the access would be created there with the arrow. Next slide, please. And then from the west looking east, the blue star is the one tree that would be removed for the visibility from that direction, and the arrow is the point of access into the site. And again, just from a little bit further west, just to give you that overall impression. Okay, so yes, the appeal site, as you can see, is an area of semi-natural ancient woodland, as designated by Nature Scott, and of semi-natural origin. It is also listed as native woodland by the Native Woodland Survey of Scotland. The site is located on the south side of the A984, 1 kilometre to the southeast of Dunkeld, within the River Tay National Scenic Area. The proposal is for the formation of a vehicular access and follows the refusal of permission for the formation of a vehicular access and associated works on the 9th of August 2024. The site includes a small section of the tarred road, an overgrown grassed verge, including a dilapidated stone boundary wall, several trees, and low-lying self-seeded shrubs. The application has been made because the owner and applicant want to be able to carry out routine woodland maintenance, access their fishing beat, and enjoy the woodland in general. The reapplication includes visibility displays, a lay-down area, and turning facilities within the site. The access is 5.5 metres in width with curbs along each radius. Speed traffic survey has highlighted the 85 percentile speed is 43.54 miles an hour, which allows for a relaxed visibility standard from the usual 215 metres to 120 metres in each direction. The submitted arboricultural assessment identifies the site as a riparian woodland above the River Tay, with the majority of the trees considered to be in a fair to good condition, presenting an attractive visual amenity. The woodland is made up of predominantly broadleaf trees, oak, holly, birch and sycamore, with occasional conifers including cypress and hemlock. It forms an uninterrupted strip of woodland running along the south side of the road. A previous application was refused in August 2024, but only for reasons related to access, visibility and road safety. So the reasons for refusal for this application are firstly that the proposals result in the loss of ancient woodland, contrary to policy 6B1 of MPF4, which states that proposals will not be supported where they result in any loss of ancient woodlands. Secondly, the proposal results in the loss of ancient woodland, contrary to policy 40AB of Perth and Kinross LDP2, which seeks to protect existing woodlands, especially those with high natural, historic and cultural heritage value. Furthermore, the proposal is contrary to Perth and Kinross Council's Supplementary Planning Guidance, Forestry and Woodland Strategy 2020, which seeks to preserve and enhance ancient woodlands in recognition of their status as our most valuable heritage and biodiversity asset. So the assessment by the Planning Service states that previous road safety concerns have been addressed with the provision of visibility displays, lay-down areas and turning facilities within the site. However, this has been done at the expense of loss of additional trees within the ancient woodland. 10 trees will be felled to accommodate the development, 9 to accommodate the entrance in and 1 to achieve the required visibility, which would fragment the uninterrupted strip of ancient woodland, which as noted in the LDP provides an area of high natural, historic and cultural heritage value. The associated ASG seeks to preserve and enhance ancient woodlands in recognition of their status as our most valuable heritage and biodiversity asset. The need for the development has been assessed against the policy provisions, and it's considered that these can still be met without the resulting unacceptable loss of ancient woodland, and no other material considerations have been presented which justify overriding the development plan. Ancient semi-natural woodland is described by Nature Scott as an irreplaceable resource, and along with other woodland hedgerows and individual trees, especially veteran trees of high nature conservation and landscape value, should be protected from adverse impacts resulting from development. As noted in the consultation response from the Council's tree officer, the forestry operations specified within the Forestry Management Plan do not necessitate a formal access. Hectares of woodland are managed without such levels of infrastructure, and there is no justifiable reason to form an access to undertake the operations specified at this site. The justification provided for carrying out the development is not proportionate with the level of adverse impact. The Council's Biodiversity Officer has confirmed that the ecological impact assessment is comprehensive and acceptable, but that the loss of ancient woodland is the main concern. Turning to the applicant's case, they argue that unreasonable weight has been applied to consultee responses and that the arboricultural matters have resulted in the refusal of a reasonable development. They're of the opinion that additional information related to the reasons for refusal could have been conditioned. The planning officer acted unreasonably by refusing the application without engaging in a constructive discussion. The trees within the site are part of a larger woodland Cluny Forest, as identified in the Forest Management Plan that lies between the A984 and the River Tay, extending to 6.5 hectares. While the trees are included in the Ancient Woodland Inventory, the trees along the edge of the A984 are in the young phase of their biological development and as such cannot be considered ancient. The proposal does not result in a conflict with a restocking or remedial notice and does not affect land identified within the forestry and woodland strategy as being suitable for woodland creation. The wider area in the applicant's ownership can accommodate appropriate replacement tree planting to provide sustainable arboricultural amenity, as well as supporting maintenance and management of the woodland over the longer term. The proposed loss of trees is not considered to be numerically or arboriculturally significant. The proposed infrastructure has been located to minimise impact on the trees and woodland. Although 10 trees are affected, 2 are in poor condition, category U. There are no category A trees, and the remaining trees, while requiring removal to accommodate the development, 5 of them are category C and only 2 of them are category B. And mitigatory tree planting would consist of native species, further contributing to biodiversity enhancement. And just in terms of other matters, pre-application advice was previously given in advance of both of the applications which have been submitted on the site. This included the various tree, ecological, visibility and speed surveys required. The further development of the woodland was highlighted as a potential issue. And if the application was approved, there would need to be conditions to cover roads matters, biodiversity enhancement, mitigatory planting and a woodland management plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll move on now to questions. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Ms Tierney, when I visited the site yesterday, you made reference to younger trees, I didn't get the sense that the area before us today, that there were pioneering trees, as in I didn't get any evidence that there was previously a lay-by, a turning spot, or any other previous use. Would that be what you saw?
Yes, I didn't see any anything that looked like previous development within that area at all. It all seems very natural rather than anything built or man-made.
Thank you.
And Councillor Williamson.
No questions.
And I too have no questions on this one. So members, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us, that is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning officer, planning advisor, or do we require any more information? Councillor Stewart.
Ready to proceed.
Councillor Williamson.
Happy to proceed too.
And I'm happy to proceed. So Councillor Stewart, if you could start us on this one.
Thank you, convener. Reading all the reports and doing a site visit, I don't see any reason to depart from the officer's reasons for refusal. So I'll go for refuse.
Thank you very much. I too had a visit to the site. I think there's a couple of points that were raised in the papers. One seemed to imply that the reports that we have were against each other or in confusion here. I think just to clarify that obviously in all applications, the process includes referral to various departments, transport, trees, ecology, so on. They make the reports and it's then really for the planning officer to balance these replies. I don't concur that they're in conflict with each other. And the other point was raised here was about the ancient woodland trees. It was an implication, I think, that younger trees aren't ancient and therefore can be easily removed. I think this comes down to the determination of what ancient woodland really is. Does it apply to just the trees themselves, whether they're ancient or not, or does it apply to the whole area as ancient woodland? And I think the interpretation is, and the implied reference was that ancient woodland is the trees as a whole, irrespective of whether they're new or older trees. There's also a comment made that it's an offence for lorries to park for loading. Never come across this before, and if it is, I think you find often appropriate signage, temporary signage, even stop-go boards allows for trees to load, and that wouldn't be a regular occurrence, obviously. And I had a visit, and I feel when I was there that it's reasonably passable to get through the woodland. There certainly would need to be some shrubbery removed, but that wouldn't be a regular thing. It'd be a one-off, I think, or certainly for several years before needed again. The tree officer has obviously declined to go ahead. He feels it should be refused. I feel in this case, as with you, Councillor Stewart, that there's a matter we have to take on board. The other point here, I think, also is that policy 6C of NPF4 makes it clear that there has to be a public benefit, and there is no apparent public benefit here at all for this land to be opened up as described in the application. So all on board, and given the comments of the tree officer and the fact that we have to protect ancient woodland as declared in our policy, I will refuse the application as well. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Convener. I likewise am minded to refuse on the basis of the officer's recommendations. I don't see any reason that's been demonstrated to be out from existing policies. So my decision is therefore to refuse.
Thank you, members. Mr. McLeod, we have a unanimous decision to refuse, and I presume from my colleagues that as the conditions, the reasons of refusal are, you're happy with those? Yeah, so it is as written.
Thank you, Convener. So that's a 3-0 unanimous decision in favour of refusal, and there's no additional amendments to make to the reasons for refusal.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that now, members, moves on to our final paper this morning, which is the case which was deferred, has now been returned to us. Mr. McLeod, I think you wanted to say something before we go into this in depth.
Thank you, Convener. Just to basically make a statement in respect of the applicant's further response to the tree officer's comments. I just wanted to advise that those have been received by the committee, and they have had prior intimation of that further correspondence that was received Thursday last week, I believe. So it's just to state that has been received, and the members will take that into consideration.
Thank you. So again, this is a case which was deferred some months ago. It's to do with the erection of a dwelling house in principal land 40 metres west of 8 Langley Place in Perth. Mrs. Tierney, if I could ask you to introduce the case, and I think a full introduction on this one because my two members with me were not on the previous committee. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Convener. No, I'll run through everything from the start for everybody's benefit. Thank you. So the presentation to start with, so the location of the appeal site, obviously to where the yellow star denotes the application site there, just up Mount Tabor Road in the Canoe area. Next slide, please. And then as we zoom in to that, so you can see the location of the site off Mount Tabor Road, and then obviously Muir Hall Road further to the north as well. Next slide, please. And then just zooming in a bit closer within the circle there, the location of the application site within the circle just off Mount Tabor Road. Next slide. This is some of the drawings that were submitted with the application. So we've got the red parcel is the application site where the house is proposed. The blue land is the other land within the ownership of the applicant. And then we have some other drawings here. So again, we can see the other houses on Mount Tabor Road and to the south and to the east as well, and then Muir Hall Road to the north. And you can see the other area hatched blue is the other land in the ownership of the applicant, a paddock area. Next slide, please. And then so zooming in, we've got the access, the vehicular access of Mount Tabor Road into the site. The indicative position, this is an application in principle, so indicative house footprint within the site. The area hatched yellow belongs to the applicant, but the owners of Gaintree Cottage to the west there have a right of access over that area. And then this is the information from the local development plan, so we can see the application site denoted by the yellow star within the wider settlement boundary, and then also with the right-hand image shows the green area, which is the protected open space area within the LDP. And then we have some photographs. So we've got Muirhall Road to the north of the application site, so we can see the blue land in the ownership of the applicant beside the road there, the open paddock area, and the application site is at the top of the hill there where the yellow arrow is. Next slide, please. And then this is looking in the opposite direction, back down towards the centre of Perth itself. And then just a little bit further along the road here, so you can see the rest of that open space area, the location of the application site where the arrow is, and then I've also just shown in behind the trees there the location of Gaintree Cottage, the immediate neighbour. And then this is now looking up Mount Tabor Road towards the application site, and then also on the right hand side from the application site looking down Mount Tabor Road, and with Gaintree Cottage there on the right hand side. And then this is now starting to come and look a bit more closely. The image on the left is the access into Gaintree Cottage. So where that car is parked is that area which is in the ownership of the applicant, but which the owners of Gaintree Cottage have a right of access over. And then the garden area of Gaintree Cottage, and then looking towards the application site beside the yellow arrow. And then again, this is just closer up images. This is as far as cars can travel up Mount Tabor Road here before it becomes a footpath only. And you can see quite a lot of growth along the boundary of the application site there. And the house would be in behind that where the yellow arrow is. And then again, just some more images of the boundary of the site, the foliage, and where the road becomes the footpath. And then this is now looking from up the hill back down towards the application site on the right hand side. And then this is this is now looking into the application site, so you can see the properties to the north side, Langley Place, and there's a small shed within the application site. And then this is just some imagery of the surfacing of the road and the footpath and the drainage channels on Mount Tabor Road. And then this is further information that was submitted by the applicant after the deferral last time. So just zooming in a little bit more detail on the position of trees along the boundary and protected areas, and then the footprint of the dwelling house. So introduction and background to start with. The appeal site concerns an area of ground within the settlement boundary, which, while within a residential area, is also protected as open space. The area of open space includes other ground not in the ownership of the applicant, Millennium Park to the west, but this part of it within the ownership of the applicant stretches from Muirhall Road to the north to Mount Tabor Road to the south. While the park to the west is a more formal area of open space, this area of ground has been used as a paddock for a number of years. The application site is a smaller parcel of ground accessed only from Mount Tabor Road to the east of Gaintree Cottage, which is a listed building, and to the west of dwelling houses at Langley Place, accessed from Langley Drive off Muir Hall Road. The access into the site would be taken by driving east along Mount Tabor Road as far as vehicles can drive before it turns into a pedestrian-only route leading to Langley Drive. The applicant owns an area of ground where the access into the site would be taken from and over which the owners of Greentree Cottage have a right of access. The boundaries of the wider area contain various trees and foliage, including at the point of access into the site. The applicant is offering to create biodiversity improvements across the remaining land in their ownership, stretching down to Muir Hall Road. The reasons for refusal are firstly that the proposal would result in the loss of an area of existing open space as identified as such within the Perth and Kinross LDP2, and the proposal is therefore contrary to Policy 14A, existing areas of open space, as the development does not meet with any of the exceptions cited within the policy and would ultimately result in the loss of an area of land which has been identified for retention by the council as open space. In addition to this, if approved, that decision may be cited by others as setting an undesirable precedent, undermining the objectives of the council and leading to the further erosion of open space in both this area and others. Secondly, the proposal would result in the loss of an area of existing open space which has been identified by the council as being of visual amenity value and worthy of retention. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy 1 placemaking of the LDP2, as the proposed development would adversely affect the character of the surrounding area by losing existing open space which currently contributes positively to the area. And thirdly, it has not been fully demonstrated that the proposed means of access to the site is safe for both pedestrians and other road users. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy 60, Transport Standards of the LDP2, which looks to ensure that all road-related matters are in accordance with local and national design and safety standards. So in terms of the assessment by the Planning Service, it's acknowledged that while the site is essentially surrounded on all sides by housing, and in principle the development of a house would not conflict with that the site is protected open space within the LDP. Part B of Policy 14A is most relevant, and which states that one of the exceptions allowing for development is where it involves a minor part of the site and would not affect its continued use as a recreational or amenity resource. It is considered that the amount of ground proposed for the development is more than minor. While the ground is in private ownership and does not have a functional use, it has a visual quality and a feeling of openness. It is acknowledged that when looked at in detail, a suitable and acceptable design solution for a house can be found, which would also not impact on neighbouring residential amenity. In terms of roads and access, Mount Tabor Road is an adopted road and recognised core path and right of way. The access to the site is already used for access to Greentree Cottage. Transportation and Development have commented that there is still perhaps insufficient detail around the vehicular access into the site, how pedestrians in the area will be catered for, and if minimum requirements for emergency access can also be catered for. The applicant's case stated that a larger area of open space would be retained and enhanced, and the planning officer has taken a narrow view of the impact of the development. While the site boundary measures 20% of the overall area of open space, the footprint of the house and driveway is nearer 5%, with the rest being garden. It is questionable what the visual impact is, as it's not visible from Mount Tabor Road. Access to Greentree Cottage will remain, and the proposed access only utilises a small area to gain access to the site. Mount Tabor Road is adopted and maintained by the council. A width of 3.7 metres is required for emergency vehicles, and this width exists. Pedestrian access is not affected. The site can be serviced with mains drainage and water and other utilities, and a modern and energy efficient house would enhance the visual amenity of the area. So in terms of other matters, the Community Council has commented that it considers the site as suitable for a single house, but only access from Mount Tabor Road and not Muir Hall Road, but that because the road is very narrow, it's not suitable for vehicles like bin lorries. Construction traffic must take into account the use of the route by pedestrians, including school children. There are 5 letters of objection, and points made include the area has been protected for over 25 years and as an important area of open space within the Canoe Hill area. It acts as a green corridor linking the lower spaces to the woods on Canoe Hill. The semi-rural character of the area would be suburbanised. The open space designation assists in protecting the setting of Greentree Cottage, which is a B-listed building. The proposed access would result in a loss of trees and hedging, which are important habitat, and no surveys have been carried out to determine any such impact. The area acts as a natural habitat for biodiversity. Despite previous applications, these have all been refused to protect this natural area. Existing cars using this route will be dangerous for cyclists and walkers, including children. Previous applications have been refused, including an appeal rejected by the Scottish Government due to the sensitivity of the site, impact on the open space network, rural character of the area, and the setting of Greentree Cottage. The access to the site, which is also to Greentree Cottage, is unable to support additional vehicular traffic, and the narrow nature of the access is already narrow between the boundary wall of Greentree Cottage and a ditch on the other side. The applicant is proposing to plant native trees and flowers elsewhere on their land. However, the area is already rich in ecology, and this should be preserved first and foremost, including tawny owls, red squirrels, foxes, frogs, bats, rabbits, hedgehogs, and birds. The Conservation Officer notes that Greentree Cottage is a listed building, but there should be no harmful impact on the setting of that property. So in terms of when the application was deferred at the last meeting, and in terms of the further information, further information from the applicant on the proposed entrance to the site, its physical acceptability, and the plans regarding the trees on the site as well. And then what was required was, once that information was received, this was to be circulated to Transport Planning and the Tree Officer for further comment. Further information was also requested from the Planning Officer and Development Plans team on the open space element in relation to MPF4, the Council's open space strategy, and to provide information as to why the site is designated as open space. And then finally, the applicant was given the opportunity to respond to the various comments received. So firstly, turning back to the applicant's, the information that came from the applicant further to the deferral, this states that none of the existing mature trees will be removed, altered or harmed, that the proposed vehicular access to the site is located between two trees. The accompanying drawing shows the tree positions and the route of the proposed access and the protected zones at each tree. The area between the two protected trees where the access will be formed will have the beech hedge removed over an area of 4 metres. The hedge will be replanted on site where the gate is removed. Mount Tabor Road would now be serving 4 properties in total. The Roads Department guidance and regulations are that a private road can serve up to 5 or 6 houses. This is well within the allowance, and also the road width is greater than new private roads, and these roads do not require footpaths. The access road to the site is fully adopted by Perth and Kinross Council, and there have been no accidents involving pedestrians on Mount Tabor Road. One more dwelling would increase the traffic movement on the road, but only in a very minimal way. In response, Transportation have stated that the updated site plan includes further detail on the access road to the development site, including road widths and proposed opportunities for passing. The house should be provided with a vehicle access route for firefighting vehicles from a public road to not more than 45 metres from any door, given direct access to the interior of the dwelling. Fire and rescue service vehicles should not have to reverse more than 20 metres from the end of an access road. Where any dead-end route is more than 20 metres long, turning facilities should be provided. This can be a turning circle or a hammerhead. Advice should be sought from building standards. Swept path tracking may be required. Further detail is required to confirm that turning facilities can be delivered without adversely impacting the safety of users of the core path. If planning permission is granted, a condition is required that all matters regarding access, vehicle parking and turning facilities, walking and cycling facilities, the road layout, design and specification, including the disposal of surface water and waste management provision, shall be in accordance with the standards required by the Council as Roads Authority and as detailed in the National Roads Development Guide. The response from the Tree Officer notes that the supporting planning statement states that no trees or hedges will be removed or affected by the proposal. In the absence of supporting information in the form of an arboricultural report and impact assessment, this statement must be challenged as there is no evidence to support it. Due to the lack of information, the proposal cannot be properly assessed against policy. The comments from the planning officer said that the area in question has been designated as open space within the LDP2 for its visual amenity value in a local context. It is not a functional area of open space, which is what the open space strategy will largely address. In light of this, it's their view that the site is not green infrastructure as such, which would normally be more applicable to functional areas of open space where there is a clear public use available, for example, the North or South Inch areas. The terms of Policy 20 and the open space strategy are therefore more aimed at those functional areas of open space, as opposed to smaller ones which have perhaps visual amenity qualities for the local area and contribute positively to the character of those areas. It may be the case that in future LDP2 it may only be larger and more functional areas which are both included within the LDP as protected areas of open space and match those areas which are included within the Council's open space strategy. Conflict with Policy 1 of the LDP2 was still used for this decision, as the loss of area would have an adverse impact on the local area. And then the Development Plans Officer has commented that they are in the process of preparing the first open space strategy, which is expected to be finalised at the end of this year. They are required to include all sites greater than 0.2 hectares in the audit, and they have included the designated open space to review ahead of LDP3. The LDP2 open space layer shows the function of the site as landscape value. There's also some background information in the examination report into LDP2 and the reporter's comments at that time, were as follows with regard to the Mount Tabor Road site H169. Point 6, I recognise that under issue 1A, successful sustainable place, it has been found that there is no shortfall in meeting the housing land requirement in the Greater Perth housing market area. Adequate housing land has been provided to satisfy the requirements set out in the Strategic Development Plan. Accordingly, there is no strategic numerical justification to allocate further sites for housing within the Greater Perth housing market area. The land subject to the representation is located to the south of the Murray Royal Hospital site, MU336, and allocated as open space in the proposed plan. The pasture land, along with the rest of the open space allocation, provides a visual break from the residential development that has taken place in the wider surrounding area. Point 7. Housing development would detract from the rural character of the area and green network provided by the open space allocation. Although the site may not contain protected species, in general, green networks can also provide habitat and corridors for wildlife within urban areas. The land is bounded to the west by a core path, but is not available for public access. It is contended to be effective and free of constraints. Nevertheless, it is a prominent green space when viewed from the near properties of the Corner House and Tabor at Muir Hall Road. And point 8, despite the existence of some tree and shrub boundary vegetation, any intensive development of the site would have an adverse effect on the setting of the Category B listed Gean Cottage, which was the childhood home of Sir Patrick Geddes. Potential still exists for reuse of the land as a paddock, and it has been allocated as an open space for several years, although not included in an open space audit. The site was not taken forward to the main issues report stage, and the proposed change of this part of the open space allocation was not the subject of full public consultation. Given the above, and in particular the provision of adequate housing sites elsewhere to meet the strategic housing needs of the Greater Perth housing market area, I conclude that the allocation of the land is not justified. The officer then goes on to say that it is too early to say whether the open space designation will remain, although the site was pre-screened out of the full open space audit, as the surveyor stated it was a private garden with no public use or access. There still needs to be a check on the site's ecological qualities through the blue-green infrastructure audit, and there is also a live survey which may provide information on whether this site is important to the community. The final comment is that such designation should be given where sites have a clear public function or in cases where they are important natural spaces. Other sites may offer more value by having designations removed. There are a lot of factors, for example, housing land requirement and community consultations, and while recommendations will be made based on the OS audit findings, the decision will be down to the relevant locality officer. In response from the applicant and the agent, they've stated that with regard to trees, the need for an arboricultural report can be conditioned, that with regard to open space, the proposal will not affect any blue infrastructure. With the house and driveway covering 2.84% of the overall site area, there is little to no effect on green infrastructure either. With regard to the open space strategy, the council will not have this until later in 2025. The land in question is a grassed overgrown paddock with mature trees and overgrown hedgerows bordering it to the west and south boundaries. The proposal is to erect a dwelling house at the southern end of the site where it narrows and at the top of the substantial rise in ground level from north to south. The house is then not seen visually from Muirhall Road, the north boundary, and with the trees and hedgerow to the south boundary not seen from the core path at Mount Tabor Road. The southern and large remaining area of the site will have the hedgerows maintained and wild meadow and tree plantations planted, which will enhance the visual amenity greatly and also enhance wildlife and biodiversity. Surely a dwelling house erected out of the view of the public and an enhanced open space is much more appealing than an overgrown paddock. It is noted that the planning officer's comments about the open space strategy, concentrating on larger areas of open space and not smaller private ones, does invite the question about the expectation for the site to be open space at this time. The report about the LDP 2019 related to proposals for more housing on the site and not a single dwelling. Other counter arguments are presented on the reporter's findings and comments, including that the current application has not been refused because of the impact on the neighbouring listed building. In conclusion, it's considered that the question about the open space designation remains unanswered, and that in any open space or LDP review to designate private land as having a visual amenity when it is located alongside a large public park does seem unusual and misplaced. Thank you.
Thank you for that full report, Mrs. Journey. We'll open up to questions. If I may ask one myself, just to clarify the situation with the tree side. I note there's no trees to be removed, just hedges. But even in that case, I'm right in saying we would normally need a tree report in an in-principle case. Is that correct? So is our tree officer correct in saying there isn't a report there?
Yes, convener. I mean, you know, it was obviously deferred for tree information, and whilst the agent has said there's trees and shown trees on a drawing, it's not a tree survey as such. It's not a full arboricultural assessment. So we don't know exactly what the impact on the trees still is.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, convener. Leslie, did I hear you correctly when you said that this area has possibly been screened out of the review for LDP 3?
So, councillor, I think what they're saying at this stage is that it was screened out. Now let me just go back to that section. Just bear with me. So it was a comment from the, so this is the development plans officer. And I think this is in terms of the LDP. And what they've said is that although the site was pre-screened out of the full open space audit, so that's actually to do with the open space strategy, the forthcoming open space strategy. The person who was surveying sites and information screened it out because they believed it to be a private garden with no public use or access. Now, they're obviously still going to check that through the process of both the open space strategy and the LDP review as well. That's all I can say, Councillor. That's the information that's come from the LDP officer. Although clearly there is a much larger area of open space and more formal open space to the west.
I do apologise. So therefore, either or, is there the potential there for having that designation adjusted either through the formal process of the LDP3 or alternatively by application by the developer?
Yeah, so effectively what the normal process would be is that a bid would be submitted to the LDP, the process to have the open space designation removed in a formal way, so that any planning application that comes forward in the future, that issue is no longer there. That would be the normal process would simply be to seek to have the designation as a protected open area of open space removed, and then that would be considered as part of the LDP process. And there would be consultations as part of that, both in terms of other officers who are conducting the open space strategy, but also the community, the wider community, obviously have an opportunity to engage with the LDP process as well.
So thank you, Cal. So therefore, there is a potential to have this area of land, the designation removed, but it would need a consultation, and therefore, if we were so minded to approve this application, that is something that could not be put in as an amendment, just for clarity.
So, okay, there's nothing to stop anybody putting a planning application in on any site at any point in time, and that could be at any point in a local plan process. Obviously, the policies that are in the LDP have to be applied to any planning application, and that is that at this moment in time, and for a good period of time historically, this has been an area of protected open space, and it's been allocated as such in the LDP. Obviously, that's not to say that planning applications can't be submitted, and that's what's happened in this particular case, notwithstanding the fact it's allocated as open space. The applicant feels that there are good reasons why, whatever the reason for the allocation is, it need not remain in this particular part of the site, and a house can be erected on the site. And where the LRB was trying to get to was trying to work out why the site had been protected as open space in the first place, because that wasn't clear, and what the process is going forward. The advice that you will get from planning and development management on any planning application is to approve this development now in advance of any review of the LDP or the open space is premature, and is not able to be given full consideration in terms of the merits or otherwise of this being a continued designated area of public open space. Does that help?
No.
So there's nothing to stop. Right, okay. There's nothing to stop you approving this planning application or this appeal if you feel there are significant enough material considerations to set aside the fact it's allocated as open space, regardless of what happens in the future, in terms of whether it remains open space or not through the review of the LDP or the open space strategy.
Okay, so therefore, just coming back, you say we can potentially approve this. This is providing there are mitigation circumstances being submitted, but we're still left with a decision to make on something that may, as we're just about to end the cycle for the LDP2 and moving into LDP3, and the time frame around about that means that this piece of land may or may not have its designation altered. And what I'm trying to get to is a point which says there will be a crossover point between this application and the LDP3, and where I'm trying to get to is a point where it says, well, if we are minded to approve this application at this stage, subject to a potential changing designation at a later date, is that something that can be done now, or is that something that we essentially have to wait until the designation has been formally altered, or the application for the application, for the designation to be changed has to go in, and therefore we condition approval on the basis that the applicants have applied for the change of designation, but that designation has to be approved before he can move on to the construction phase of the project. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, no. If you decide to uphold this appeal and grant permission for the house, that's it. Okay, there's no that's subject to it being removed as open space. If you uphold the appeal and grant the house now, that is on the basis that you feel there are enough reasons to depart from the open space policy and from the fact that this is designated open space. You know, we've got enough reasons now why it's designated as open space. It's not a formal park area or anything like that, but it's been historically protected as an open area for its visual and landscape and amenity that it gives to the settlement. If you decide that sufficient reasons have been given by the applicant to depart from that, you can approve this development, and it wouldn't be subject to anything that happens in the future. What would probably happen is this particular bit of the site that has got the permission now granted on it would be removed from the protected area of open space in the next LDP, because there would have been a decision in the intervening period that changes what's in the LDP. I think what it's probably worth just pointing out is, you know, an LDP takes a long time to come forward. We are at an opportune point right now, and again, I'd reiterate what advice your officers would give you, and that's, you know, we're not having to wait 5 years before this can be reviewed. This can be something that the applicant comes to the council about right now, goes to the planning service and says, for these reasons, we would like the open space designation removed. And then that can potentially happen, and then they can come forward with an application that would be approved in line with policy, because it would no longer be protected. But no, at this moment in time, if you decide there are sufficient reasons to depart from the policy and the fact it's designated open space, if you think there are adequate and substantial reasons for doing that, you can do that.
Councillor Stewart, do you have any questions?
Convener, I don't know if there are questions. It's more about clarity. I think, like yourself and Councillor Williamson, a lot of information to take in there, and lots of reports. So just to clarify, this site's within the city, Perth city boundaries.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so it's not green belt. Thinking about this site and being an open space, after I did a site visit that's not being used as an amenity for the local area. As in, we've got the Millennium Park just along the road. When I visited, it looked like an overgrown paddock area.
I wouldn't disagree with you, and that's really why it was deferred the last time, to try and find out information as to why this area of ground was also part of the open space designation, and has been confirmed, it is an area that offers amenity because it's an open area, and it's designated as such because it provides a visual and landscape amenity to the settlement in an otherwise built up area, albeit it's in separate ownership. It's not a public park, and it's not owned by the council, but it has an amenity value, and that's why it's been contained within the LDP as an area of protected open space for some time.
Thank you for that clarification. And on my visit, I noted that along the site sits and Corsey Drive. It's the back of the houses that run along the Tabard Road, and Langley Place is the back of the houses. So these houses have not been designed to face onto this open area.
No, I would agree.
And I think this is the essence. I'm trying to help me to make a decision about the designation of an open space. It's overgrown hedgerows, and then the only open bit is about maybe 3 meters of a gate. Or am I missing that the open space is an amenity from the east of Muir Hall Road?
I think all I would say in response, Councillor Stewart, is it's been designated as part of the wider area of open space in the LDP, not because it's a formal park or anything, although it's adjacent to one, but that it provides a visual and landscape amenity in that area, buffer if you like, between and what is otherwise quite a built up area. And I think some of the comments from objectors speak about the it's almost part of a green corridor that leads from up towards Canoe Hill, for example. So I mean, I'm just talking off the top of my head now, but this is obviously something that would be looked at in a bit more detail as part of the LDP review. And obviously, if there's not been an open space strategy up until now, and officers are working on that at the moment, I would expect they will be looking at exactly why it's been designated as open space, and if there's value in that remaining to be the case. And then, generally speaking, the advice you would get from officers is that development of that site in advance of any review of the LDP or adoption of an open space strategy would be a premature decision.
Okay, and that was my next clarification was going to be, you mentioned in your presentation about the sort of the corridor. We can see that going on Muir Hall Road, there's a significant area of green belt, sort of, that's probably the wrong phrase, but there seems to be a lot of corridors in the area. And I presume if this development did go ahead, that there would still be an area of running along the lane, because the Mount Tabard Road terminates at Langley Drive. So I imagine there'll still be a corridor of a sorts, because I noticed that on the Corsey Drive side, a lot of people have built into that lane area. However, there is still green parts for insects and wildlife to move. Would I be right in that assumption?
I mean, blue and green infrastructure is a specific policy in MPF4 now, and that will be something that will be taken forward into the LDP. So you know, there will be assessments of areas of open space and how they contribute to the blue and green infrastructure network as well. I don't think I can really comment on any of the site-specific things you mentioned there apart from that. So.
Thank you. No further questions.
Well, after that question period, members, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us, that is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor, or do we require more information? And I've just been corrected, it should be now Bailey Williamson.
No, councillor will do, but Bailey's fine. Yes, I'm happy to proceed.
And Councillor Stewart.
Ready to proceed.
And I too am happy to proceed. And I'll start us off on this one. This is proved to be somewhat of a complex case. I won't say complicated, complex. It was complex when it came before us the first time, and I think it's just as complex now. If I may just go back slightly, this was, and I'm not sure if the property was under the same ownership then, but back in 2016, there was an application for 6 houses on the site, and it went eventually to the LRB of that day, and that made a clear point that this was open space. And although it was private land, that was not a prerequisite for open space and the amenity that it gives to the public. We're now looking at one house in another portion of the area to that one, but the land is the same. The land is the same. And I think the situation here, the thing that binds our hands, in my opinion here, is this designation of open space. And Mrs. Tierney read out in full, and I won't do that again, the points made by the reporter when LDP2 was put in place. And the highlight point here is that the pasture land, along with the rest of the open space allocation, provides a visual break from the residential development that's taken place in the wider surrounding area. The housing development would detract from the rural character of the area and green network provided by the open space allocation. In my mind, I think that is the governing part here. And I feel, in respect to all the other points about trees and transportation, I think that is the overriding factor here. And I feel that I would have to refuse the appeal on that basis. But on a personal note, having been to the site, I feel it's an adequate place for building to take place. And as Mrs. Tierney said, this is now an opportune time to apply for this open space designation to be changed, either as the whole site or the portion that you want to build on. So I think this is the right time to do it. But I feel at this time, because of the confines of the open space designation, I would have to refuse the appeal. Bailey Williams.
Thank you, convener. I feel entirely conflicted by this application. Part of me is saying about the designation that the land currently has, but from what we've been told, it's already been sifted out, but that's getting reviewed. You are correct by basically saying that now's a good time to try and get the policy changed, and that's why I was pushing that. Is that something we could condition? I feel we've been slightly forced into a corner of either accept or refuse. Officers have mentioned there's no ecological report or tree survey being done on the site, which is a failing. But my feeling is that could possibly be conditioned out, that one is presented and presented as part of the application and subject to approval. So I'm just erring on the side of approval, subject to additional conditions round about an ecological survey and a tree survey plans being submitted for approval by officers. So my recommendation is to approve.
Thank you for that. So, Councillor Stewart, it's on your head now.
Thank you, convener. Yep, a complex case, and that's why it's in front of us today, and difficult decisions have to be made. and appreciate all the work that officers have given in the reports, and Ms Tierney's trying to be as balanced as possible, in line of my questions about clarity. Open spaces are really important, particularly within a large conurbation. And it's important when we, in this time of climate change, that we look long and hard at supporting biodiversity. That being said, I am minded to approve this, accept the appeal, and I would be minded to approve the application. I feel that part of that is the streetscape would just be a continuation of Mount Tabor Road, and bearing in mind with the use of the land lower, be building on the biodiversity. So I'm quite conflicted, but I am minded to accept the appeal and go for approval.
So, Mr. McLeod, we have a 2-to-1 majority to approve.
Thank you, convener.
Subject to the usual conditions, obviously.
Thank you, convener. So that is a 2-to-1 majority decision in favour of accepting the appeal and approving the grant of planning permission. I just wanted to double check in respect of obviously the additional conditions you suggested there, and in respect of Bailey Williamson's proposed additions, would it be preferable to have the ecological and tree survey conditions conditioned on to any grant of planning permission? Is that? Thank you. And in respect of this particular application, the approval would be a contravention of the development plan, but the justification for that is that the streetscape would be a continuation of Mount Tabor Road, and there's appropriate conditions that we can condition on that would secure the appropriate biodiversity, conditions as such. So yeah, thank you.
Convener, we would also need roads conditions as highlighted in the transportation and development further consultation response.
Thank you. I'm sure Mr. McLeod would include that, would you not?
Yes, that looks like that's something that can be conditioned on in respect of primary education and transport infrastructure conditions, as well as if you bear with me, sorry.
Yeah, there's developer obligations for primary education and transport infrastructure, but there was the particular comments from roads in terms of full details of access, vehicle parking and turning facilities, walking and cycling facilities, layout, design and specification, including the disposal of surface water and waste management provision in accordance with standards.
That's correct. I've got that now. Thanks, Leslie. Just in respect of the Officer Carlin's comments in respect of applying a condition that all matters regarding access, vehicle parking and turning facilities, walking and cycling facilities, the road layout, design and specification, and waste management provision shall be in accordance with the standards required by the Council as Roads Authority as well.
Okay. Are you happy with that, Mrs. Tierney?
Yeah, can I just clarify as well that although we're going to be requesting the ecology and tree information, that the other area of ground, the area of blue ground and their ownership are members looking for a condition for biodiversity enhancement on that piece of ground as a specific condition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's an agreement on both on that one, yeah. seems to be as complex to get it approved as it was to understand in the first place. Are you happy with that then, Mr. Tierney? Yep.
Yes, thank you,
Ah,
convener.
okay, fine. So, gentlemen, your case has been approved. Your appeal has been approved. It's a complex case, as you know, and as I said, the site is. I prefer not to. No, we don't allow any comments, I'm afraid. But as I said, it's a complex case, and the open space is a factor. As I said, as a location, it seems to be ideal. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't pleased for you, but but it's a complex one, and I think the comments I made, I stand by them. But we are where we are, so it's been approved for you. There we go. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's case. Thank you very much, members, and no doubt we will see you in a future LRB. Thank you very much, everyone.